Hi guys, welcome to my channel, to my bookland, and to our coffee times together. And today I have a very special video for you. I have my very first Booktube Q&A.
It's coffee time!
So last Monday, the 10th of June, I celebrated 1 year in Booktube. That's the day that I posted my very first video, which was my newbie tag, which if I would go back and watch now, I probably would be ashamed of myself. And it's probably gonna be crappy because I recorded that with my cell phone and it was not the best. But I decided to celebrate my first year. Instead of going back and watching that video, I'm gonna leave that for maybe next year or a little bit, you know, longer on Booktube, so that I can really go back a couple of years. I think that will be fun. So I decided what to do, and have never done a Q&A in this channel before, and I decided to ask Twitter, to ask you guys if you had any questions for me. And I have to admit, I was a little bit scared that nobody was gonna send me any questions, but then a lot of you just started to send me so many questions that I managed to, you know, compilate so many for this video that I had to make a big list. And yeah, so today it's going to be basically me answering to questions that you made me on Twitter. What I have done is separate questions that are more Booktube related or books related, and then questions that are more towards my personal life, which there were also a lot of them, which I think it's cool because means you guys want to know a little bit more about me. So let's jump to the questions. Alright guys, so I printed the questions, and let's start with the part where I put all the questions related to books or Booktube. So let's jump to the questions. If you wrote a novel, what genre and tropes would you use? So I think when I was in high school, I actually wrote a like 4 or 5 pages horror story, and I don't know why I stopped. I used to like to, you know, create these stories in my head, and most of my horror stories were horror that could happen anywhere to anybody. I love horror that comes also from a place where it could happen in real life super easy. I think that's why I like some of the novels from Stephen King as well, because he has totally different types of horror, and I love the ones that, you know, it could happen anywhere to anybody. And in most of those cases, the people themselves are the enemy. I don't know, I think I would like to write horror. What's one world of a book you would live in? And I think this would be Harry Potter, because I consider other worlds, okay? And I mean, Alice in Wonderland, that's a trip, but I think Harry Potter would be really something I would be able to really live in. I would love to visit Hogwarts, be a student, and learn the magic. It would suck though if I end up in the Harry Potter world, but I'm a regular muggle that doesn't know that Hogwarts exists. That would suck though. So I would like to live in the Harry Potter world if I get to go to Hogwarts. Who's your favorite antagonist? I have many, mostly horror related. We have, of course, Annie from Misery. That's a novel by Stephen King. I also love the classics, Hannibal Lecter, love it. And obviously Dracula from Bram Stoker. Dracula is one of my probably favorite characters in novels, because he's, you know, his personality and the reasons why he does things, everything has an explanation, and he's such a rich character. I don't know, I just really love Dracula. Are there any books you DNF'd that you want to give a second chance? I have to make a confession here. I don't DNF books. I have such an issue DNFing books because I feel like I'm not giving the book a fair chance, and this year for the first time I'm learning to DNF. So I actually DNF'd Made You Up by Francesca Zappia, I think, and it was just not for me. It was an audiobook, So maybe if at any time I come across a copy, a physical copy, and for free or for like €1, maybe I'll pick it up and give it another chance in a physical format. Maybe it was just the audiobook that was not for me. And fun fact, and this is probably something nobody knows, I've never DNF'd any book, but while I was reading the Twilight series, and this is gonna be such an unpopular opinion and I'm sorry, I got Twilight the moment it came out. I didn't know anything about Booktube, YA, nothing about, you know, the movies were not even out, it was not even a thing, and I liked Twilight. And then I got the next book and I thought, okay. And then the third book I was like, I'm not liking this. But I am a completionist, so I got the fourth book and I was like, I'm determined to finish this. And I think I left the book with 10 pages left and never read those 10 pages. So there's the tea. Will I ever reread the series? Not very likely. I've thought about it. I thought about giving it another chance. I have recently rewatched the movies though, because I really wanted to give them a fair chance. I know Twilight means a lot for a lot of people and I respect that, and I know a lot of people in the Booktube community came to books and reading and opening their Booktube channels because of Twilight, so you know, that is amazing, and I understand why people might really enjoy this series, but maybe it's just not for me. So I am not a Twilight hater, it's just maybe it's not for me. But I don't know, maybe at some point in my life I will give the books another try. I do still have the copies of my books somewhere in a box on my basement. So who knows, maybe I'll someday give them a try. What are your all-time favorite books? Anything Stephen King, okay, Dracula by Bram Stoker, Alice in Wonderland, and one of my recent favorite ones would be Ready Player One and I Stopped Somewhere. I love that book so much. I Stopped Somewhere is by T. Carter, and it's one of the books that has touched me the most this year. And to mention a fluffy, funny one, a little bit adult, smutty, would be The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. If you had to pick only one book to read for the rest of your life, which one would you pick and why? This is too hard, okay? First of all, it's rude to only give you one book. Maybe I will get the Dark Tower series, if that counts as one, because those are chunky Stephen King books, and then I would have enough material to read. And if not, probably Dracula from Coppola is really one of my favorite classics, and I think I could reread it anytime. What are some 2019 releases that you loved? So things that I really loved and that were released in 2019. So You Asked for Perfect by Lara Silverman, All We Could Have Been by T. Carter, the second novel of this author after she wrote I Stopped Somewhere, Red, White and Royal Blue, because we all know this is taking the Booktube community by storm and very well deserved. On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, that I loved even more than I loved The Hate You Give, so that's saying something. And Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Osman. This graphic novel was just perfect. What is your major bookish pet peeve? So I have a lot of things that gives me issues. One of the biggest things that I always kind of, you know, reminds me that it's a book is when the parents are non-existent and you're like, where are the parents? Why is this person like not having any kind of parental supervision in this book? I think it's something that a lot of authors forget when they're writing, you know, for a more kind of like a teenage audience. They forget that the parents should be there. And another thing that I don't like is when characters are undeveloped and they are extremely generic. It's happened this year to me with When the Sky Fell in Splendor. I loved the concept of the book, but the characters, there was like a group of friends and they were also similar that I confused them all the time. They were also generic, and it's something that really bothers me. I got 2 questions about the same thing, and that is, what's your favorite book this year? So I made a note of all the books that I have given 5 stars so far this year, and those are Children of Blood and Bone, Heartstopper, On the Come Up, The Hating Game, I Stop Somewhere, and I Hate Fairyland. So those 6 titles got 5 stars from me this year. Favorite childhood book, Alice in Wonderland, if you cannot tell. Favorite bookish couples, so I noted down Cinder and Kai from the Lunar Chronicles that I adored, Lucy and Joshua from The Hating Game because you gotta love them, and obviously Mina and Jonathan from Dracula by Stoker. Then 2 or 3 people asked me the same question, which is a very valid question, you guys, and that is, what do you plan doing now that you've been on Booktube for a year? Where do you see your Booktube channel in a year from now? Are new plans for your channel? So yeah, when I started Booktube, it was kind of like an impromptu idea. I was like, oh, I would really like to do it, and I said to myself, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna do it, because if you start to think about it, you're not gonna do it. And so I did it, and I went you know, into Booktube without many expectations. I just saw it as a way of communicating with other people that would like the same stuff, you know, books, and talking about books and sharing our thoughts on everything that we read and stuff like that. And one of the things that I really want to do in this new year in my channel is bring more original creative content. I have so many ideas. I have lists. I have like a couple of notebooks that I keep, and when I get an idea for a video, I write it down, and I have so many ideas, but I have like 0 time to bring them to life. So one of my personal challenges this year is to take that notebook and make those videos happen, because I have so many ideas that I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great, and I'm passionate about it, but then, you know, I just don't have the time, and you know, it really kind of annoys me because I know the ideas are there. So I would really like to finally bring you guys more original content, more creative content. So I really hope that this is gonna happen in this new year in my Booktube life. Alright, now let's go to the juicy part, which is the personal questions. So I have a lot of these because some people sent me multiple, which is great because now I have material to talk to you. So personal life question, worst job you've ever had? When I came to Germany, I had basically no money and no job. So what I did, literally, I went through the main like shopping street here in Cologne, and I started looking at the windows to see if anybody needed help. And I just went into a store that needed help, and it was the weirdest thing for me because it was kind of like a shoe shop, but it was only like sport shoes, like kind of Adidas, Nike, and all of that stuff. And they only played hip-hop music all day long, and I had to kind of dress up for the occasion as well. And you don't know this, guys, but I don't like hip-hop at all. I like, you know, the classics, rock, 80s music, and hardcore heavy metal, you know, like thrash metal, black metal, all of that stuff. So listening to hip-hop for hours in that first job was the worst. It was really bad paid. You had to be standing all the time. The music was horrible. My German was horrible, so I don't even know how I ended up selling so many shoes. But I think that was my worst job. But you know, I ended up owning it, and I needed the money, so that's what you do. What 5 bands are on your bucket list to see live? I was thinking so hard to answer this question because, to be honest, most of the bands that I listen to the most either don't exist anymore or I have already seen live. On my first years when I was living in Germany, I went to all the concerts I could go to, all the festivals, because the heavy metal scene in Germany, specifically in the area where I live, is very big, so there's a lot of stuff going on. So I've seen most of my favorite bands live, you know, also the bigger ones like Judas Priest, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Alice Cooper, I don't know, all of these bands, I've already seen them live. But What I would like is to go back in time and enjoy some of my favorite metal bands in the 80s, because some of my favorite metal bands started in the 70s or the 80s, and it will be amazing for me to be able to see some of my favorite bands, like of course Ronnie James Dio, Rainbow. Oh my god, Rainbow is a band I have never seen live. I've only seen Dio. I've never seen Rainbow because I was too young, let's be honest. But I would love to go back in time and watch also some of my favorite bands like Wasp. I've seen Wasp, but I've seen them when they were older. But I imagine myself, you know, in a concert in the 80s and really enjoying it, like Whitesnake, all of these kind of hair metal bands. I love them, but they belong in the 80s, and it is a totally different experience seeing them back then and seeing them now. Also some old school thrash metal bands as well. So if I could, I would go back in time to watch the bands that I have already seen, but when they were like on their peak of their career. What are your favorite TV shows at the moment? So at the moment, I am really getting into The Expanse. Now the series does start really slow, but you start to love the atmosphere and slowly start to fall in love with the characters. So if you love slow burn sci-fi, this will be for you. And I recently went to a convention where we met most of the main cast from The Expanse, and you know, I went to their panels, and it has really pumped me to keep watching the series. It was originally, I think, on Netflix, but then they moved it to Amazon because they were canceled and Amazon took over, which is great because then we got more seasons. And also right now I'm binge watching Stranger Things season 1 and 2 because season 3 is coming out on the 4th of July. And I know I already seen the seasons, but I need to binge watch them again to get ready for season 3. What's your favorite ice cream? Chocolate and mint. I love that combination. I know some people don't like it at all, but I just love combining chocolate and mint. What would you be if you were an animal? I think I would be a mix between a cat and a bat. That's basically me. A plant or flower? I think I would be a sunflower. I just love that sunflowers move towards the sun, and I grew up in Spain, so the sun has always been a big part of my life, and it's something that I do miss in Germany sometimes. What would you be if you were a natural happening? I think I would be a storm because I am very temperamental sometimes. It might have to do with my Spanish, you know, blood. So I think I will be a storm. If I would be a food, I'll be a potato. I'll be potatoes because potatoes are great. You can do potatoes in so many ways, and they're always tasty, and they're good carbs. They're good for you. If I were a drink, I'll be coffee. Okay, that was easy. If I'll be a song, I'll probably be Join Me in Death by Him. Back on my teens, the first time I heard this song, I didn't know anything about the band, never seen any video, never anything. I heard it on the radio, fell in love with the song, waited for hours until they played it again so that I could catch the name of the band, and then I went and bought the CD, and it's a song that I've always loved. If I were a movie, I'll be The Crow. It is my absolute favorite movie, and I loved everything about it. And seriously, it's the best movie ever. If I'll be a drag queen, I personally really love Violet Chachki. I loved her style so much. And personally wise, in season 1 we had Nina Flowers, and she also had some Hispanic background, and she was always saying to people, loca, loca, and I could totally relate to that. So kind of like a mix between the two. If I would be a Disney character, I think if it has to be a princess, it's probably gonna be Belle, because hello, she loves books, and it's the first Disney movie I ever saw in the cinema, and I don't know, I've watched it so many times, and I always love that she was kind of independent and can, you know, she didn't want the typical like boy and marry. She just wanted to enjoy her books, spend time with her dad, and I absolutely love that about her. Who would you impersonate if you were to do Snatch Game? If you guys don't know what Snatch Game is, it is one of the challenges that the drag queens have to do when they are participating in RuPaul's Drag Race. And the challenge is basically to dress up and impersonate somebody. So I have been thinking so much, and I don't know who I would impersonate. I don't know if I look like somebody really famous that I could pull it off and impersonate that person. I mean, fictional characters, of course I could do that. And I was thinking, I don't know, maybe I could do, actually now thinking about it, maybe I could do Christina Ricci as Wednesday Addams. I think that would work for me if I do my braids and, you know, I answer to everything very dramatic and black humor and about death and all of that. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea for me. I think if I would have to impersonate somebody, it would be Wednesday Addams. What's one thing on your bucket list? Go to Egypt and go into a pyramid. I've always been obsessed with Egypt, and I've never been there. I know it's not the most, you know, it's not the safest place, so I don't want to go there alone, but I would definitely would love to go into a pyramid. It's always been a dream of mine, so I hope that I can make it one day. Which books really got you into reading? So when I was a kid, I started going to the library. I got a library card when I was very young, and I started reading everything age appropriate. And there were some books that in Spanish, it was like a special collection of books, and they were called Barco de Vapor. I'm gonna put some pictures here so you know how they look like, and you know, they would tell you the age, and they were all like really cool stories. And so I started with those, and then I basically went from that to classics and Stephen King. There was no in between. There was no YA phase for me. So Stephen King was one of the first things I read right after, you know, middle grade and classics. I jumped straight into Stephen King, and that's something that really hooked me into reading, because I was hooked to his books. Like, how can you not? The stories are so gripping, and it is just so mesmerizing how he can create these amazing worlds full of so many characters, and it really pushed me into reading. Care to share one thing we have no idea of about you? This question was so hard because I consider myself a person that I am completely transparent, completely honest. So when I'm talking about things I like, I don't like, I always tell you stories, I always tell the truth. So I don't know if there's anything that you don't know about me that would be worth mentioning. I swear, you guys, I've been thinking so hard and I cannot come up with anything. I don't know. I don't have any brothers or sisters. There you go. Something probably you don't know about me. I'm an only child. I don't know, I've always kind of secretly wished that I would have had a brother or a sister, but the thing is, with some of my cousins I got really good friends with, so they were kind of like my brother and sister, but it's not the same, and I think it's something that I would have wished I would have had, so I would have known what it is and how it feels like. What's your favorite movie of all time? We've covered this, The Crow, and a very close second, Dracula from Coppola. Side note, it started raining hard, so I'm sorry if there is some rain sounds on the background, so sorry. What is your current job? So I don't want to say exactly where I work, just in case, because the internet is not safe, people. Should be a safe place, but not always is. So I do work with computers every day. I work in a company that has to do with products related to the internet. That's what I can tell you, and I work with clients from all over the world, and I speak Spanish, English, and German at work every day, and when I take a phone call, it can be somebody calling from India, United States, Spain, Colombia, who knows, so I might end up speaking Spanish, English, or German on the phone. What is your lifelong dream? Honestly, just, you know, be happy and have enough to provide for myself and my animals, and just do the best that I can to help animals and it's a dream of mine is to move somewhere on the countryside and be able to rescue animals. For example, like older cats that nobody wants to adopt anymore because they're old, or older dogs, I don't know, goats, pigs, chicken, ducks, you name it. Like, that would be my dream, to be able to live somewhere in the countryside and rescue animals that need a place. But of course, you need a lot of money to provide for them. But that would be really a dream. What got you into horror? So, story time. When I was, I think, 9 or something like that, my cousins made a kind of like girls' slumber party, and we wanted to watch a horror movie. And my older cousin decided it was okay for us to watch Dracula from Coppola. And after I watched that movie, I got obsessed with vampires, blood. I started having nightmares, but I was loving the nightmares instead of being scared. And after that day, my uncle gave me a videotape, a VH tape of The Exorcist and Psycho. So those were my first horror movies, and yeah, I loved it and I wanted more. Current favorite movie? It's always gonna be The Crow, FYI, to say. But if I had to choose a movie that I've seen this year, it's probably gonna be Glass, because James McAvoy is unbelievable in that movie. The fact that this guy has not got an Oscar, I just don't understand. And also Us by Jordan Peele, absolutely loved it. But there's more to come this year, like It Chapter 2. That one's probably gonna make this list. Favorite food or meal? Honestly, anything that's vegan. I would eat anything that's vegan. I don't have preference. I love pasta dishes, pizza, I love burgers, I love tacos, burritos. I love Spanish dishes. My mom veganizes them for me because she's the best. I don't know, I love all foods. I love Mexican food, I love Italian food. I don't have problems with anything. I love potatoes, I love all kinds of stuff. I love these big salads where you throw in everything. I love everything. I just love food a lot, especially because I lift weights at the gym and I'm building up muscle right now, and you get so hungry. You get so hungry, girl. Like, you eat and 1 hour later you're hungry again, so you eat again. So yeah, I love food and I would eat anything that's vegan. Who is your favorite villain in any media format? For movies, I'm gonna choose Top Dollar, who is the villain in The Crow. How original, I know, but I just really like that movie. And in books, it will be It by Stephen King. It is this entity from another world, and he's basically these 3 dots of light. That's how his true form is. But he can transform into your worst fear. And one of the personalities that he can assume is Pennywise, because children really have this fear of clowns. So it's one of his most well-known transformations. He transforms into Pennywise, and I just absolutely love that. I love the book. I love all the ways he transformed in the book as well. And yeah, it's one of my favorite like villains. In which horror movie would you survive in? Well, I've been training for years watching all these horror movies. I think I've learned so much about the zombie apocalypse in the last years, watching so many horror with zombies, that I would have good chances, I think. But it's always kind of like a luck thing as well. You gotta be lucky. So I think I would have good chances of surviving in movies where the killer is not supernatural, when it is a human that you can kill yourself, because then you have better chances of just killing him and surviving. Because in other cases, when it's supernatural, it's a little bit more tricky to kill. What scares you the most? I think everybody, you know, is afraid of death, and I think that's my worst fear. Not death per se, but to stop existing. I'm getting very deep right now. but this fear and this kind of feeling of emptiness that you have when you think that at some point you're gonna stop to exist, I think that's my biggest fear. Alright you guys, this video got a little bit too long, but those were all your questions. I just wanted to make sure that I answered all of them because you guys took the time to send the questions to me, so I thought it was just fair. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you thought about all my answers. I know there were a lot. If you stayed right to the end, you're a real champ. Thank you so much for your patience and for hearing me out. Thanks so much, you guys. Remember to give the video a thumbs up for support. Subscribe to the channel. All my other social media links can be found down below, so make sure to follow me in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I'll see you all in the next coffee time. Bye!